Deep within the crystalline halls of the Galactic Federation's most secure facility, Ambassador Theron watched as technicians prepared the containment chamber that would hold their last hope, or their final mistake, the ancient creature floating. Within the energy barriers had once been responsible for the complete annihilation of the Zelkan Empire, a civilization that had ruled over 40 star systems for 3,000 years. The being they called the Void Reaper defied every scientific principle known to galactic science. Its form shifted constantly between matter and pure energy, sometimes appearing as a writhing mass of tentacles darker than space itself, other times manifesting as geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. The only constants were the burning crimson points that served as its eyes, each one containing what looked like the death of a star. "Are we absolutely certain about this course of action?" asked Chancellor Vex, her blue-scaled hands trembling as she reviewed the classified reports for the 100th time. The psychological evaluations suggest this entity views destruction not as a necessity, but as an art form. Theron nodded grimly, his own doubts weighing heavily on his four-armed frame. The humans had been a problem for exactly 3 years, 7 months, and 12 days, ever since they had first encountered a Federation patrol fleet near their home system. What should have been a routine first contact scenario had turned into the most humiliating military defeat in recent galactic history. Human response to superior firepower had been to reverse engineer captured Federation technology in a matter of weeks, then launch counterattacks using their own ships modified with stolen designs. Within 6 months, they had not only repelled every invasion attempt, but had begun expanding into previously unclaimed systems, establishing colonies faster than the Federation could track. The humans possess capabilities that our xenobiologists cannot explain, Theron continued, gesturing to the holographic displays showing human battle footage. They adapt to new technologies with impossible speed. They refuse to surrender even when facing overwhelming odds. And somehow they always find weaknesses in our strategies that our best tactical computers miss. What made the situation truly terrifying was humanity's apparent immunity to conventional, psychological warfare. The Federation had perfected techniques for breaking the will of resistant species, economic blockades, targeted strikes on cultural centers, demonstrations of overwhelming force that typically led to immediate surrender. But humans seemed to interpret every act of aggression as a challenge to be overcome rather than a reason to submit. The Void Reaper stirred within its containment field, its attention drawn by the emotional resonance of fear and desperation emanating from the assembled Federation officials. The creature had been imprisoned for over 2 millennia, held in stasis while the galaxy's greatest minds debated what to do with something too dangerous to release but too valuable to destroy. "Your terror tastes familiar." The Reaper's voice bypassed all conventional communication methods, speaking directly into the minds of everyone present. "You face an enemy you cannot defeat through conventional means. Tell me of these humans that have driven the mighty Federation to such desperation." Theron activated the holographic projector, displaying tactical recordings from the Battle of Proxima Station. The footage showed human fighters performing maneuvers that should have been impossible, weaving through Federation formations while somehow predicting targeting solutions before they were calculated. Even their retreat had been devastating, as human ships had somehow managed to disable 3 Federation dreadnoughts while evacuating their own forces. "They fight without regard for acceptable loss ratios," Theron explained. "Their warriors will sacrifice their own vessels to protect evacuation ships carrying civilians. They refuse to acknowledge the superiority of more advanced species, and they treat every defeat as a learning experience rather than a reason to surrender." The Reaper's form pulsed with what might have been amusement. "Interesting. How many worlds have they conquered in their expansion?" "That's part of what makes them so unusual," Chancellor Vex interjected. "They haven't conquered anyone. They establish colonies on uninhabited worlds and offer defensive alliances to species threatened by our expansion. When they do claim systems, they actually improve conditions for any existing inhabitants. They do not consume other species for resources. No. They trade, negotiate, even share technology with civilizations they consider allies. It's completely contrary to every model of aggressive expansion we've encountered." The Void Reaper's eyes flared brighter, and several technicians stepped back involuntarily. The creature's interest was clearly piqued in ways that hadn't been seen since its initial capture. You wish me to eliminate a species that fights fiercely, but does not conquer, that adapts quickly but does not exploit. This is not the typical request I receive. Theron felt sweat forming beneath his ceremonial robes, despite the chamber's climate control. The Federation Council has authorized me to offer you complete freedom, in exchange for the total elimination of humanity. Every man, woman, and child across all their colonies. No survivors, no prisoners, no possibility of their genetic line continuing. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of the containment generators. Everyone present understood they were witnessing a moment that would reshape galactic history. If the Reaper accepted, humanity would cease to exist within months. If it refused, the Federation would have to find another solution to their human problem, assuming one existed. Have devoured civilizations that spanned thousands of worlds. I have consumed species that had achieved transcendence beyond physical form. I have brought darkness to realms of pure thought and reduced gods to whispers in the void. The Reaper's form expanded slightly, testing the boundaries of its containment. But I have never encountered a species quite like the one you describe. Then you accept the contract? Theron asked, trying to keep the relief out of his voice. I accept the opportunity to study these humans firsthand. Once I understand what makes them unique, I will decide their fate. The containment field flickered and began to fade as technicians entered the shutdown sequence. The Void Reaper's form immediately began to expand, growing from the size of a small spacecraft to something that filled half the chamber. Dark tendrils reached toward the walls, and several Federation officials fled despite their diplomatic training. Provide me with the location of their primary worlds. I will begin with their most heavily defended colonies and work toward their home system. When I return, you will have your answer about humanity's fate. As the last of the containment barriers fell away, the Reaper dissolved into streams of dark energy that flowed through the chamber's walls like water through a sieve. Within moments, it had passed through the station's hull and launched itself into the void, heading toward the coordinates Theron had provided watching through the observation deck. Ambassador Theron wondered if they had just solved their human problem or created something infinitely worse. The Void Reaper had agreed to investigate humanity, but its final words suggested the outcome was far from certain. In the depths of space, the galaxy's most feared predator began its journey toward human space, driven by curiosity rather than hunger for the first time in millennia. What it would find among the humans, and what it would choose to do about them, remained to be seen. Mining foreman Rodriguez wiped the sweat from her weathered face as she reviewed the weekly extraction reports from Kepler 4042b. The small outpost had been operational for 18 months, carved directly into the asteroid-rich system that provided rare elements essential for humanity's expanding fleet. She commanded a workforce of barely 3,000 souls, miners, engineers, technicians, and their families who had volunteered for this remote assignment. The colony existed in a delicate balance between productivity and survival, with every piece of equipment serving multiple purposes and every person trained in emergency protocols. The asteroid field that provided their livelihood also posed constant threats from debris impacts and solar radiation storms, but human ingenuity had turned these challenges into advantages. Rodriguez to all stations. She spoke into her communication device. We've got an unknown contact approaching from Vector 77 Mark IV. Velocity indicates arrival in approximately 4 hours. All department heads report to the command center immediately. The alien signature had appeared on their long-range sensors like a nightmare-given form. Massive, moving at speeds that defied conventional physics, and emanating energy readings that their equipment could barely measure. Senior Technician Park had run the sensor data through every database in their system, but the approaching object matched no known Federation ship design or natural phenomenon. Within minutes, the command center filled with the colony's leadership team. Each face reflected the same grim understanding. Their isolated outpost possessed defensive capabilities designed to repel pirates or small Federation patrols, Not whatever monstrosity was bearing down on them from the void evacuation options? Rodriguez asked, though she already knew the answer. Limited, replied Transport Coordinator Adams. Our cargo haulers can carry maybe 400 people at maximum capacity, and that's if we strip out all non-essential systems. The nearest human colony is 6 days away even at emergency speeds, defensive capabilities. Chief Security Officer Williams shook her head. Our missile batteries might scratch the paint on something that size. The energy shields were designed to deflect asteroid impacts, not military-grade weapons. Whatever this thing is, it's operating on a completely different scale than anything we've encountered. Rodriguez studied the tactical display showing the approaching entity's projected course. It would pass directly through their system, possibly close enough to detect the colony's energy signature. There was no chance of hiding, no possibility of outrunning whatever was coming, and no hope of fighting something that massive. Initiate emergency protocols. She decided. Priority: evacuation for all children and non-essential personnel. Volunteers only for defensive positions, and I want every parent with kids under 12 on the first transport out. As alarm klaxons began wailing throughout the colony, Rodriguez watched, families making impossible decisions in real time. Parents kissed children goodbye before sending them to evacuation shuttles, knowing they might never see each other again. Engineers volunteered to stay behind and maintain power systems that might buy the evacuees precious extra minutes. The approaching entity's signature grew stronger with each passing hour, and their sensors began registering effects that shouldn't have been possible. Space itself seemed to bend around the object, creating gravitational anomalies that defied every law of physics Rodriguez had learned in her engineering training. It's beautiful, whispered sensor technician Chen, staring at the readings with a mixture of terror and awe. Whatever it is, it's not following any natural laws. The energy patterns are like nothing I've ever seen, almost like it's made of space itself. Through the command center's reinforced windows, the first signs of the entity's arrival became visible as a dark stain spreading across the star field. The approaching creature blocked out entire constellations, its presence turning the familiar sky into something alien and threatening. But as the Void Reaper drew closer, something unexpected began happening. Throughout the colony, instead of complete panic, Rodriguez witnessed acts of extraordinary courage and selflessness. Maintenance workers stayed at their posts to keep life support running for those still evacuating security personnel, took positions they knew were hopeless, buying time through their sacrifice, sir, reported Communications Officer Davis. We're receiving a transmission from the entity. It's not using standard communication protocols. Somehow it's speaking directly into our minds. The psychic contact hit everyone in the command center simultaneously, a voice that seemed to echo from the depths of space itself. Curious, I sense fear among you, yet you do not flee in chaos. Why do you not scatter like others of your kind when faced with inevitable death? Rodriguez found her voice despite the overwhelming presence pressing against her consciousness. This is Mining Colony Alpha 7. We have families here, people depending on us. We don't abandon our own families. The concept seemed to puzzle the entity. You speak of genetic bonds as though they override survival instincts. This is unusual among species I have encountered. We're not just talking about blood relations, Rodriguez explained, surprised by her own boldness in addressing something that could obliterate their entire colony without effort. Everyone here is family. We chose to come to this remote system together. We work together. We survive together. The Void Reaper's massive form had become visible now, filling the sky like a living storm made of shadows and starlight. Its presence created aurora effects in the planet's upper atmosphere, as cosmic forces interacted with the magnetic field in ways that produced impossible colors. I have been sent to study your species before rendering judgment. Most civilizations I encounter immediately attempt negotiation for survival or launch desperate attacks, hoping to wound me before death. You do neither. Would either option work? Rodriguez asked. No. Then we'll face whatever comes with dignity. We've lived good lives out here, building something meaningful. We've raised our children to be curious about the universe and brave enough to explore it. If this is how our story ends, at least it ends with us being true to who we are. The entity's form shifted, becoming more coherent as it descended through the atmosphere. Tendrils of pure energy reached down toward the colony's structures. But instead of the destruction everyone expected, they seemed to be scanning, analyzing, learning. Your offspring, where are they during this crisis? We evacuated the children first, Rodriguez replied. That's what you do when you're family, you protect the ones who can't protect themselves. For several long moments, the Void Reaper hovered above the colony in silence. Its massive consciousness seemed to be processing concepts that didn't fit its previous experiences with sentient species. The humans below waited with remarkable calm, having done everything they could to protect their young, and now accepting whatever fate awaited them. I must see these offspring you speak of. I must understand what drives such unusual behavior. Rodriguez felt her heart sink as she realized the entity's intent. The evacuation shuttles are already 6 hours out. They're heading for the edge of the system. Distance is irrelevant. I can traverse space faster than your vessels can cross a solar system. Show me the location of these evacuated children. With no other choice, Rodriguez transmitted the shuttle's projected course to the entity, the Void. Reaper's form began to dissolve at the edges, preparing to pursue the fleeing humans across the void. As it departed, its final psychic message carried an undertone of something Rodriguez couldn't identify. Perhaps curiosity, perhaps something else entirely. Your species continues to surprise me. I will return when I have learned what I need to know. 7-year-old Alex pressed his face against the small porthole of Evacuation Shuttle 3, watching stars wheel past as the vessel pushed beyond the asteroid field at maximum velocity. His younger sister Emma slept in the seat beside him, her 4-year-old form curled around a stuffed bear that had somehow survived the hasty evacuation from their family quarters. Teacher Collins moved through the cramped passenger compartment, checking on the 43 children under her care with the calm efficiency that had made her invaluable. During the colony's educational programs, she had volunteered to accompany the evacuees when their parents made the impossible choice between staying to help the defense effort and ensuring their children's safety. "How much longer until we reach the relay station?" asked Marcus, one of the older teenagers who had been helping Collins maintain order among the younger passengers. "Another 18 hours if we maintain current velocity," Collins replied, though they both knew the schedule meant nothing if whatever had threatened the colony decided to pursue them. The shuttle's engines were already operating beyond recommended parameters, pushed to their limits by a crew determined to put as much distance as possible between their precious cargo and the unknown entity. Alex turned away from the porthole and raised his hand. "Teacher Collins, why did the grown-ups stay behind? My dad always says families stick together." The question pierced straight to the heart of every adult's worst nightmare. How to explain to children that sometimes love means separation, that sometimes protecting someone requires letting them go. Collins knelt beside Alex's seat, choosing her words carefully. "Your parents stayed because they love you more than anything in the universe," she said. "Sometimes when grown-ups love someone very much, they make hard choices to keep that person safe. Your mom and dad wanted to make sure this shuttle had time to reach safety. But what if the scary thing follows us?" asked 6-year-old Lily from across the aisle. "What if it finds us anyway?" Before Collins could formulate a reassuring response that wasn't a complete lie, the shuttle's emergency lighting suddenly shifted to red. Emergency klaxons began wailing as pilot Chen's voice echoed through the passenger compartment over the intercom system. "All passengers prepare for immediate course change. We have an unidentified contact approaching at impossible velocity. Estimated intercept in less than 10 minutes through the portholes." Space itself began to darken as something vast and malevolent approached their position. The entity that had threatened the mining colony had somehow crossed the distance between star systems in a matter of hours, moving through space like a living storm that devoured light itself. "Teacher Collins," Alex whispered, his 7-year-old voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "Is that the thing that came to hurt our families?" Collins felt her training as an educator, war with her instincts as a protector. How do you prepare children for something that defies explanation? How do you maintain calm when facing the impossible? She made a decision that would have seemed insane under any other circumstances. Children, I need everyone to listen very carefully, she announced, her voice carrying the authority that had commanded respect in countless classroom situations. Something very unusual is about to happen. The entity approaching us is unlike anything humans have encountered before. But I want everyone to remember something important. We are explorers. The shuttle's hull began to vibrate as the Void Reaper's presence affected local spacetime, creating gravitational distortions that their small vessel's compensators couldn't fully counteract. Emergency systems activated automatically, sealing the passenger compartment and switching to internal life support. Our families came to the stars because humans are curious, Collins continued, raising her voice above the increasing mechanical stress sounds. We explore dangerous places because we want to learn about the universe. We're not just passengers on this shuttle. We're representatives of humanity's greatest adventure. Alex unbuckled himself from his seat and moved to comfort Emma, who had awakened to the emergency lighting and alarms. His small hands gently shook his sister's shoulder. Emma, wake up. We need to be brave like Mom and Dad taught us. The 4-year-old rubbed her eyes and looked around the red-lit compartment. With the adaptability that made children remarkable survivors. Are we playing the emergency game? She asked, referencing the drills their parents had conducted to prepare for various colony disasters. Something like that, Alex replied, though his mature understanding of their situation showed in his careful tone. We need to show the scary thing that humans aren't afraid to meet new friends. Through the shuttle's communication system, they could hear Pilot Chen reporting their situation to any human vessels within range. Mayday, Mayday. This is Evacuation Shuttle 3 carrying 43 civilian children. Entity has intercepted our position and is... What the hell is that? The Void Reaper materialized alongside their shuttle like a mountain of living shadow, made visible against the star field. Its form defied perception, shifting between geometric patterns and organic shapes that seemed to exist in more dimensions than human senses could process. Energy tendrils reached toward their small vessel with movements that suggested curiosity rather than aggression. Small beings. The entity's psychic voice filled the passenger compartment, though its tone seemed different than what the adults at the colony had reported, less threatening, more questioning. I sense young minds among you, offspring of the species I have been sent to evaluate. Collins stepped forward, placing herself between the children and the nearest porthole. We are teachers and students from the mining colony. You're looking for examples of humanity's young? Here we are. Your guardians sent you away when danger approached. This is standard survival behavior. Among most species, yet they remained behind to face certain death. Why did they not prioritize their own survival over yours? Emma, still clutching her stuffed bear, spoke up in the fearless way that only small children could manage. Because grown-ups are supposed to take care of kids, that's what families do. The entity's attention focused on the 4-year-old with an intensity that made the shuttle's hull vibrate. Family. You use this word as though it carries significance beyond genetic similarity. Explain this concept. Alex joined his sister at the porthole, looking up at the cosmic horror without flinching. Family means you love someone so much that you'd do anything to keep them safe. It doesn't matter if they're related to you or not. Teacher Collins isn't our mom, but she came with us because she loves us like family. Love. The word seemed to cause some kind of reaction within the entity's massive consciousness. This emotion drives protective behavior, even when survival odds are reduced to 0. This is not rational. Love isn't supposed to be rational, Emma said with the profound simplicity that children sometimes possess. It's supposed to be bigger than being scared. For several long moments, the Void Reaper remained motionless beside their shuttle, its ancient consciousness processing concepts that didn't fit any of its previous experiences with sentient species. The children continued watching through the portholes with remarkable calm, treating this encounter as simply another part of their adventure among the stars. I must understand more. Show me how your species nurtures its young during development. I must observe these family bonds you speak of. Collins felt a chill of terror, mixed with impossible hope. You want to study human child-rearing practices? I have encountered thousands of species across millions of years. Never have I seen offspring who face the unknown with such composure, or adults who sacrifice themselves so completely for the next generation. This requires investigation. The shuttle's engines suddenly went silent as the Void Reaper's energy field enveloped their vessel, creating a protective barrier that eliminated the stress on their overtaxed systems. The entity began moving back toward the colony, carrying the evacuation shuttle within its cosmic embrace, like a parent protecting a sleeping child for the first time since the emergency began. Collins allowed herself to hope that perhaps this encounter might end differently than anyone had expected. The mining colony's emergency shelters had been designed to protect 3,000 people from asteroid impacts and solar radiation storms, not to serve as observation posts for studying cosmic entities. Dr. Sarah Kim pressed her face against the reinforced window of Shelter Alpha 7, watching the impossible scene unfolding in the settlement's main plaza. The Void Reaper had returned with Evacuation Shuttle 3, held gently within its energy field, depositing the vessel near the colony's primary landing pad, with care that seemed completely at odds with its reputation as the galaxy's most feared destroyer. The entity had then settled into what could only be described as a resting position, its massive form coiled around the settlement like a protective barrier. Day 3 of the siege, Kim dictated into her recorder. The entity continues to exhibit behavior patterns completely contrary to all xenobiological predictions. Instead of systematic destruction, it appears to be conducting some form of cultural study. The children who were evacuated have been allowed to return to their families, and normal colony operations have resumed under the creature's observation. Through the window, she could see her 8-year-old daughter Rachel playing in the plaza with a group of other colony children. What made the scene surreal was their playmate, a tendril of living shadow that the Void Reaper extended to participate in their games. The appendage could somehow solidify enough to bounce balls and gentle enough to help tie shoelaces. Personal log. Kim continued. Rachel has named the entity Void and insists it's lonely. The psychological implications are staggering. We're watching the galaxy's most feared predator learning hopscotch from human children, and somehow this seems perfectly natural to everyone under the age of 10. The cultural exchange had begun accidentally when young Emma had approached the massive entity with her stuffed bear. Asking if it wanted to play house, the Reaper's response had been to create a small shelter of crystallized energy, perfectly sized for stuffed animals and curious children. Within hours, half the colony's young population had overcome their initial fear and begun treating their cosmic visitor as an oversized playground equipment. Adult colonists had been slower to adapt, but necessity had driven them to resume normal operations under the entity's watchful presence. Mining operations continued, though workers reported feeling unusually safe, knowing that something capable of deflecting asteroids with casual thought was monitoring their activities. There's something almost protective about its behavior, observed Chief Engineer Martinez during the daily status meeting. Our external sensors show it's actually deflecting micrometeorites that would normally require our defense grid. Yesterday it vaporized a rogue asteroid that was on a collision course with Mining Platform 7. Colony Administrator Walsh reviewed the day's reports with growing amazement rather than fear. Production efficiency is up 12% since it arrived. The crews are working faster because they know they're completely safe from external threats. It's like having a guardian angel made of cosmic horror. What puzzled the adults most was the entity's apparent fascination with human family dynamics. It had spent hours observing parents tucking children into bed, asking questions about bedtime stories and lullabies through its psychic communication. The creature seemed particularly interested in how humans cared for their young during vulnerability periods. Your offspring require protection for many years before achieving independence. The Reaper had observed during one of its conversations with the colony's leaders. Yet you invest enormous resources in their development despite uncertain returns. This behavior pattern is inefficient by any rational measure. We don't raise children for efficiency, Walsh had explained. We raise them because we love them, because they represent our hopes for the future. Each child is unique, with their own potential to contribute something meaningful to the universe. Potential. The concept seemed to intrigue the entity. You nurture based on possibility rather than proven capability. This requires tremendous faith in unknown outcomes. The breakthrough in understanding came when Teacher Collins organized a school presentation about human exploration history. The children had prepared drawings and models showing humanity's journey from Earth to the stars, complete with stories about the first astronauts and the early colony ships. You deliberately seek out dangerous unknowns despite high probability of failure, the Reaper observed as the children explained their artwork. Your species chooses exploration over safety, discovery over security. This is not standard survival behavior. That's what makes us human, explained 10-year-old Derek, proudly displaying his model of a colony ship. We want to see what's out there. We want to meet new friends and learn about amazing places, friends. The entity's attention focused on the word with laser intensity. You extend family bonds to beings not of your species. This includes entities you have never encountered before. Of course, Derek replied as though the answer should be obvious. The universe is big and full of interesting people. Once you get to know someone, they usually turn out to be pretty nice. The Void Reaper's form shifted, becoming more coherent and less threatening as it processed this concept. Children throughout the plaza had begun incorporating the entity into their daily routines, bringing it drawings, sharing snacks, even reading stories aloud while sitting, safely within its protective energy field. Dr. Kim watched her daughter Rachel carefully explaining the rules of tag to a cosmic force that had destroyed entire civilizations, and realized she was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. First contact between species typically involved either conflict or formal diplomatic protocols. Never had she heard of children simply adopting an alien entity as an honorary playmate. I am beginning to understand why the Federation considers your species problematic, the Reaper communicated to the assembled adults. You do not respond to threats as predicted. You do not prioritize survival over principle. You extend trust and affection to entities that could destroy you without effort. Is that why you were sent? Walsh asked. To eliminate us because we don't behave the way other species expect? I was sent to judge whether humanity represents a threat to galactic stability. After 3 days of observation, I have reached a preliminary conclusion. The entire colony held its breath, waiting for the verdict that would determine their species' survival. You are not a threat to the galaxy, the entity announced. You are a threat to everything the galaxy has believed about itself. Your existence proves that cooperation is possible where only competition was thought to exist. Your children demonstrate that trust can bridge any gap, even between natural enemies. The Reaper's form began to shift again, taking on aspects that seemed almost protective rather than predatory. Its voice carried undertones of something that might have been wonder, or perhaps hope. I have been an instrument of destruction for millennia, convinced that violence was the only universal language. But your offspring speak in concepts I had forgotten existed. Love, trust, family bonds that transcend species. Barriers, they have reminded me of what I chose to abandon long ago. As the cosmic entity settled more comfortably around the colony, the children resumed their games with their new friend, completely unaware that they had just accomplished something no military force or diplomatic mission had ever achieved. They had changed the mind of the galaxy's most feared predator through the simple act of accepting it as part of their extended family. Admiral Crone's flagship detected the psychic scream from 3 star systems away, a sound of anguish so profound that it overloaded their long-range sensors and sent half his crew to the medical bay with severe headaches. The Void Reaper was calling out across the galaxy, but instead of the triumphant roar of a successful hunt, this seemed like the cry of a being in existential torment. Status report on the human colonies, Crone demanded, his 4 arms gripping the command chair as another wave of psychic energy washed over their position. Have we received confirmation of successful elimination? Tactical Officer Vex checked her displays with growing confusion. Sir, we're still detecting active human settlements across 17 systems. Their communication networks are operational, Their shipping lanes show normal traffic patterns, and orbital scans indicate no signs of recent devastation. That's impossible. The Reaper has been in human space for over a week. It should have completed the extermination within days. The massive entity materialized on their main view screen without warning. Its form more coherent than any previous recorded sighting, but somehow fundamentally changed. The chaotic darkness that had defined the creature for millennia had been replaced by something that almost resembled organization, purpose, even beauty. In its cosmic geometry, most shocking of all was what the Reaper carried within its protective energy field. A small human child, perhaps 4 years old, sleeping peacefully in a cradle of crystallized starlight. The infant showed no signs of fear or distress, floating within the entity's embrace like a beloved grandchild being rocked to sleep. The contract is void. The Reaper's psychic voice carried harmonics that hadn't existed before, undertones of protectiveness, determination, and something that might have been joy. I will not eliminate the humans. On the contrary, I have decided to ensure their protection. Crone felt his carefully constructed plans collapsing around him. You were given specific orders. The Federation Council authorized your release with the understanding that humanity would cease to exist. You cannot simply change the terms of our agreement. I can, and I have. The entity's response carried such force that several bridge officers staggered under the psychic pressure. For 2 millennia, I have served as your weapon, destroying civilizations at the whim of political expediency. But these humans have shown me something I believed was extinct in this galaxy: the capacity for genuine goodness. The child in the Reaper's protective field stirred slightly, reaching out with tiny fingers to touch the energy patterns surrounding her. The cosmic entity's form rippled with what could only be described as tenderness as it adjusted the environment to ensure the infant's comfort. This offspring represents everything your Federation has lost, the Reaper continued. Curiosity without malice, trust without calculation, love without conditions. Her species does not seek to dominate others. They seek to understand them. They do not conquer worlds. They nurture them. You're malfunctioning, Crone insisted, though his voice carried more desperation than conviction. The psychological evaluations clearly indicated that humans are an aggressive, expansionist species. Their military capabilities alone justify elimination. Their military capabilities exist solely for protection. They have never initiated unprovoked aggression against any species. Every human expansion has been in response to Federation attacks or to protect allies threatened by your policies. The Reaper's form began expanding, growing larger and more imposing as its true power became apparent. For millennia, it had been operating under restraints, holding back its full capabilities to serve the Federation's purposes. Now those limitations were being cast aside. I have spent weeks among them, studying their culture, observing their families, learning their dreams. They showed me children's artwork depicting first contact scenarios where humans and aliens become friends. They sing lullabies about peaceful exploration of the cosmos. They tell bedtime stories about brave explorers who solve problems through understanding rather than violence. The entity's attention focused directly on Admiral Crone, and the Federation officer felt the weight of cosmic judgment pressing down on his consciousness. When I revealed my true nature to them, do you know how they responded? The children asked if I was lonely. They offered to share their toys, their food, their stories. They invited me to become part of their family. Sentiment cannot override strategic necessity, Crone argued, though his conviction was rapidly eroding. Human expansion threatens the established order. Their very existence challenges Federation authority. Precisely. The Reaper's agreement carried dark satisfaction. They challenge an order built on conquest, exploitation, and the systematic suppression of species that refuse to submit. They prove that cooperation is not only possible but superior to the Federation's model of dominance. The cosmic entity began moving closer to Crone's flagship, its presence causing gravitational distortions that activated every emergency system on the vessel. The sleeping child within its protective field remained undisturbed, demonstrating the creature's perfect control over its immense power. I was created as an instrument of destruction, twisted from my original nature by beings who believed that overwhelming force was the only solution to galactic conflict. But this infant has reminded me of what I once was before my transformation. The Reaper's form shifted, revealing glimpses of what it might have been in ages past. Not a weapon of annihilation, but a guardian, a protector, a being capable of nurturing rather than destroying. The transformation was incomplete but undeniably real. I remember now why I first opposed the Federation's expansion, why I fought against their philosophy of conquest through superior firepower. I remember what it felt like to protect the innocent rather than terrorize them. The Council will never accept this, Crone said, his voice hollow with the realization of what this meant for the Federation's future. They'll mobilize everything they have against the humans now. They'll see your protection of them as the ultimate betrayal. Let them come. The Reaper's response carried the weight of eons and the promise of consequences beyond imagination. I have spent millennia learning every weakness of every Federation species, every flaw in their military doctrines, every secret they believe hidden. I know their strategies because I helped develop them. The entity's form pulsed with energy that made local space ripple like water around them. Stars seemed to bend toward the creature's presence as it demonstrated power that had been held in check for centuries. More importantly, the humans have allies now. Species that the Federation dismissed as irrelevant have formed defensive pacts with humanity. Over 40 civilizations have experienced what it means to be treated as equals rather than subjects. They will not allow the Federation to destroy the first truly benevolent species they have encountered. Communications Officer Davis interrupted with a trembling voice. Sir, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Multiple Federation fleets are withdrawing from human territories. Several species councils have declared neutrality in any conflict between the Federation and humanity. 3 of our client species have actually severed their treaties and requested human protection. The political implications hit Crone like a physical blow. The Federation's power had always rested on the assumption that superior force could maintain order, that fear would ensure compliance, but the humans had proven that cooperation was more effective than coercion, that trust generated stronger alliances than intimidation. Your reign of terror is ending, the Reaper announced. This child and billions like her represent the future, not just of humanity, but of galactic civilization itself. They will grow up in a universe where differences are celebrated rather than eliminated, where exploration is driven by wonder rather than conquest. The infant stirred again, opening bright blue eyes to gaze at the cosmic entity cradling her. The Reaper's form shimmered with joy as tiny fingers tried to grasp patterns of living energy, showing no fear of the being that had once been the galaxy's most feared predator. She sees me not as a monster but as a friend. She trusts me completely despite having every reason to fear. Such innocence should be protected, not destroyed. Such potential should be nurtured, not eliminated. Admiral Crone watched his life's work crumble as the entity he had counted on to solve the Federation's problems instead chose to become humanity's protector. The carefully balanced system of fear and control that had maintained galactic order for millennia was disintegrating before his eyes. What happens now, he asked, though he already dreaded the answer. Now I return this child to her family, where she will grow up knowing that even the universe's monsters can choose redemption. I will ensure that humanity survives to spread their philosophy of cooperation throughout the galaxy, and I will personally visit every Federation world to explain why the old ways must end. The Void Reaper began moving away from the Federation flagship, carrying its precious cargo toward human space. The transformation that had begun with a child's innocent trust was becoming irreversible, reshaping not just the entity itself, but the entire political structure of the galaxy. Tell your council that the age of conquest is over. Tell them that the humans have given the galaxy something it had forgotten existed. Hope. Tell them that anyone who threatens this child's future will answer to me personally. As the cosmic entity disappeared into hyperspace, Admiral Crone realized that the Federation had not just failed to eliminate humanity. They had accidentally created something that would ensure human survival for generations to come. The galaxy's deadliest weapon had become their fiercest protector, all because a species of explorers had shown kindness to a lonely monster. The child's laughter echoed across space as she played with patterns of living starlight, completely unaware that her innocent trust had just changed the fate of countless worlds. 8 months after the incident at Kepler 442b, Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, humanity's newest diplomatic facility, watching ships from 17 different species arrive for the first Galactic Cooperation Summit. The sight would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. Former enemies and unknown civilizations gathering under human auspices to discuss peaceful expansion throughout the galaxy. The entity known as the Guardian moved through space near the station like a benevolent cosmic whale, its transformed appearance drawing wonder rather than terror from visiting delegates. Its form had stabilized into something resembling crystallized starlight, beautiful and serene, bearing no resemblance to the chaotic destroyer it had once been within the Guardian's protective field. Now 3-year-old Emma played among floating gardens of energy flowers that the entity created for her amusement. The child had become a symbol throughout human space, proof that even the galaxy's monsters could find redemption through love and acceptance. Her innocent laughter could be heard across subspace frequencies, a sound that had become associated with hope throughout civilized space. Status report from the outer colonies. Rodriguez asked her aide, Director Park, as they watched another group of alien diplomats marvel at the Guardian's gentle interaction with its tiny human companion. Better than we dared dream, Park replied, consulting his datapad. Colony establishment is up 300% since the Guardian began escorting our exploration vessels. 17 species have requested human mediation for territorial disputes, and we've successfully prevented 4 wars through diplomatic intervention. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. Human exploration ships now traveled with the galaxy's most powerful protector, allowing them to venture into previously dangerous regions with complete safety. The Guardian's presence also served as an immediate credential for human diplomatic missions. Any species that had heard legends of the Void Reaper understood that humanity commanded respect worthy of careful consideration. What's the status on Federation response? Rodriguez inquired. Complete withdrawal from human-claimed systems, Park reported with satisfaction. 3 more Federation client species have requested independence and human protection this month. Admiral Crone's government is facing internal rebellion as member species realize they no longer need to accept Federation dominance. Through the station's transparent aluminum windows, Rodriguez could see Emma sharing her stuffed animals with energy constructs the Guardian created to keep her company. The cosmic entity had developed remarkable skill at manifesting temporary playmates, gentle beings of living light that could run, laugh, and play games while maintaining perfect safety for their human friend. Dr. Sarah Kim's voice echoed through the station's communication system as she delivered her daily research report. Personal log, Day 247 of Guardian observation. The entity continues to demonstrate unprecedented evolution in consciousness and purpose. Its protective instincts have expanded beyond Emma to encompass all human children, then to human colonies, in general, and recently to any species that requests sanctuary. The transformation had indeed been profound. The Guardian no longer simply protected humanity. It had become a force for peace throughout the galaxy, intervening in conflicts with the wisdom of ages and the power to enforce its decisions. Species that had warred for centuries found their conflicts mediated by a being that could understand all perspectives while commanding respect from all parties. Incoming transmission from Earth Command, announced Communications Officer Davis. President Chen wants a status update on the Proxima negotiations. Rodriguez activated the holographic communicator, bringing up the image of Earth's leader in her office overlooking the rebuilt United Nations complex. Madam President, The Proxima species have agreed to the territorial exchange. The Guardian's presence during negotiations made it clear that aggression would not be tolerated, while its translation abilities allowed us to understand cultural nuances that previous diplomatic missions had missed. Outstanding work, Elena. The Guardian's involvement has made it possible to resolve disputes that have festered for decades. What's its status with our little ambassador? Through the windows, they could see Emma giggling as the Guardian created a carousel of energy horses for her entertainment. The cosmic entity had developed an almost parental devotion to the child, ensuring her needs were met with precision that surpassed any technological life support system. Emma continues to thrive under its care, Rodriguez reported. She's learning languages from across the galaxy through the Guardian's linguistic abilities, and her presence has a remarkable diplomatic effect, apparently. Watching a cosmic force of nature play peekaboo with a human toddler makes other species very interested in peaceful relations. President Chen smiled at the image. Who would have thought that humanity's greatest diplomatic asset would be a 3-year-old and her cosmic babysitter? How are the Federation territories responding to our expansion? With increasing desperation, Park interjected, 8 more systems have declared independence from Federation control this month. They're specifically requesting human protection and Guardian oversight. The Federation's military forces are spread too thin to respond effectively, and several species have openly stated they refuse to fight against the Guardian. The cosmic entity suddenly materialized closer to the station, its form brightening as Emma pointed excitedly at the arriving diplomatic vessels. The Guardian had developed an uncanny ability to sense the child's interests, always positioning itself to give her the best view of whatever had captured her attention. Small Emma wishes to greet the new visitors. The Guardian's psychic voice filled the observation deck, now carrying warmth instead of the menace it had once projected. She asks if the pretty ships belong to new friends. Rodriguez activated the external communication system. Guardian, please tell Emma that yes, these are representatives from species that want to be friends with humanity. Some of them have traveled very far just to meet her. The Guardian's joy was visible as ripples of golden light across its crystalline form. I will create a viewing platform for her. She wishes to wave at the diplomats as their shuttles approach. Within moments, the entity had manifested a transparent observation bubble that allowed Emma to safely experience the vacuum of space while remaining protected by the Guardian's energy field. The child pressed her small hands against the barrier and waved enthusiastically. At each arriving shuttle, her innocent joy broadcast across all communication frequencies. Ambassador Rodriguez, came a transmission from one of the approaching vessels. This is Senator Krill from the Hegemony delegation. We're honored to meet. The young human who has become so famous throughout our territories, may we request permission to greet her properly? Permission granted, Senator. The Guardian will ensure safe approach protocols. As the first shuttle docked with Harmony Station, Rodriguez reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. The galaxy had sent its deadliest weapon to destroy humanity, but instead they had gained a protector whose power was matched only by its devotion to peace. The Federation's plan to eliminate the human problem had backfired spectacularly, creating exactly the opposite outcome. They had intended. Emma's delighted squeal echoed through the station's corridors as alien diplomats began arriving to pay their respects to the child who had tamed a monster and changed the galaxy through nothing more complicated than trust and kindness. The Guardian's form pulsed with contentment as it watched its precious charm representatives from across known space. She grows wiser each day. It communicated to Rodriguez. Already she speaks of wanting to explore distant stars and meet new species. Her curiosity about the universe matches her capacity for friendship. She'll need that curiosity, Rodriguez replied. The galaxy she's growing up in will be very different from the one her parents knew. She'll help shape it into something better. Indeed. And I will ensure she lives to see that future realized. No force in the universe will harm the child who taught a monster how to love. As diplomatic sessions began throughout Harmony Station, with the Guardian serving as both protector and translator, Emma continued playing among the stars, completely unaware that her innocent acceptance of a cosmic predator had fundamentally altered the course of galactic civilization. The age of conquest was ending, replaced by an era of cooperation guided by a transformed monster and a laughing human child, who saw friends wherever she looked.